Welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Hilbrich, will you please call roll?
Yes, sir. Councilman De La Garza?
I am present.
Councilwoman Solis?
Here.
Councilman Crocker?
Here.
Councilwoman Scott?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Young?
Here.
Councilman Lofgren?
Here.
And Mayor Bucknight.
Here. If everybody will please stand for the pledges followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
To the flag.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Garza, any announcements and or reminders?
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Happy New Year. Welcome to another great year, I hope. I do have a couple of announcements. This month, actually, will mark the second year that we host the TAF Winter Games of Texas. And they're actually going to take place over 3 months, beginning in January 13th through the 16th. And that'll include swimming, wheelchair basketball, pickleball, tennis, archery, and cornhole. And so we invite the public to visit the events and help this tournament be a success. For more information on the TAF Winter Games, they can visit the Parks and Recreation page on the COV website. Additionally, Environmental Services this week will begin pickup of Christmas trees. And so we ask the public to, if they're interested, please put out their Christmas trees out on the days that their yard waste gets collected. And we ask that they remove all artificial materials, ornaments, etc. And for more information, they can visit the Environmental Services page on our city website as well.
It's just live Christmas trees.
Correct. Yes.
All right,
For announcements, that's what I got.
that's it?
Yeah, we do have some recognitions coming up, though.
Okay,
You want to just go straight into those?
yes, sir.
All right, so first up, I'll ask Krista Euchre to come up and help introduce our January 2023 Keep Victoria Beautiful Business Beautification Award.
Hello.
Hi.
Happy New Year. Keep Victoria Beautiful is happy to start off this new year with a very exciting winner. And I will introduce Meredith Bird, our Keep Victoria Beautiful chairperson, to do the honors.
Thanks, Christy, and good afternoon, Mayor and council members. As board chair of Keep Victoria Beautiful, I have the privilege of recognizing local businesses and organizations that go above and beyond to make our city a wonderful place to live. Today, we present the January Business Beautification Award to the Warriors Weekend Field of Honor. Warriors Weekend was founded in 2007 to support American veterans. This nonprofit hosts an annual fishing event in Port O'Connor for wounded military personnel and makes donations to veterans and veterans-based causes. 9 years ago, the current Field of Honor was built on land owned by Parkway Church on John Stockbauer as a place to honor the service and sacrifice of veterans, active duty military, and their families. It is maintained year-round by a small, dedicated group of volunteers so that it can be a place of serenity and reflection. And so today I'm proud to present tonight's award to Colonel Mike Petrosh. Thank you so much. Absolutely, absolutely.
Feel free to say a few words if you like.
Turn it over to you.
I would. Mayor, council members, I brought these Hanyaks up here for very specific reasons, because this is that small group that is habitually out there early in the morning before everybody else is, and late in the evening when everybody else has gone home. You know, this will be our 15th year showing the nation what right looks like. Right here in Victoria, Texas, you've got an organization that has literally brought in more than 8,000 wounded and not healing, but healing soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. and they take this idea back with them. They've been to, we've had warriors here from every state in the Union and Puerto Rico. So when I say that we're showing the nation what right looks like, I'm not exaggerating. And so that's happening right here in Victoria, Texas, and we couldn't be more proud that we were recognized for this. And this crew that I have behind me here are the folks who habitually make this thing happen and keep that looking like, well, what we always like to say is we took a vacant lot and turned it into hallowed ground. Again, I do want to appreciate Pastor Mike Hurt and his team out there at Parkway Church who have allowed us to be out there these last 9 years. And so I want to give God all the glory, but I want to give them honor. And so again, we thank you. And again, let's just continue building a community of honor and excellence. Hua?
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you for everything that y'all do for our veterans and in the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to ask Roger Welder, our Director of Building and Equipment Services, to come up and introduce a special guest who has a presentation for y'all this evening.
He does. That he does. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to see you all. We have Mr. Benjamin Adrian here. He is a candidate for Eagle Scout, and he has done his service project benefiting the City of Victoria and specifically the Victoria Library. So I wanted to, on behalf of the city, thank him and introduce him, and he's got his presentation to do for you.
So hello, my name is Benjamin Adrian. I'm 17 years old and I'm an Eagle Scout candidate. So a few months ago, I started a service project to help restore the frontal area of the Victoria Public Library. In this project, what we did was we repainted the rails. We had to remove all the rust from them and then repaint them. And we also repainted the stair step stripes. And we also power washed the entire area. So this was also my Eagle Scout project, as Mr. Welder said. An Eagle Scout project is required to attain the rank of Eagle in Boy Scouts. It's meant to improve the local community and to promote leadership skills. And this project couldn't have been accomplished without Scout volunteers. One of them is actually in the audience, Hunter McCulloch. So thank you to everyone who helped. So this is the original condition of the library. As you can see, it's quite dingy. So this project was approved by first, I had to pitch it to Mr. Welder. And during our meeting, we discussed everything that would need to be restored to the library, and he approved the project after. And then I had to pitch my project to my Boy Scout troop leaders. And then finally, once they approved it, I had to pitch the project to my local Boy Scout committee leaders, Mr. Hill and Mr. Guerra. And I had to pitch my proposal to them and provide evidence that the library was in need of repairs. And they signed off on my project, but they did give me advice on the project, such as advice on keeping the area clean and making sure that the library is closed off. So this project took a lot of planning to figure out how to restore it. For power washing, we decided to use a large cone attachment. And for the rails, I learned that we would have to sand down the rails to get rid of the material, and then apply primer, and then bronze paint, well, 2 coats actually, and sand down each paint. And we decided to use inexpensive paintbrushes. As for the stair step strips, Mr. Welder said that we wouldn't have to strip off the existing material, that we could simply paint over it. And for painting the steps, we decided to use the standard 4-inch rollers we could buy at Lowe's. They're disposable. And I had to use a tape measure to determine how much paint would be needed. I only needed less than a gallon of each paint. So when it came to figuring out how to get the rust off the rails, we decided to use angle grinders with a wire brush attachment to do the least amount of damage to the rails. That took some research and consulting with my dad, who also knew how to use the tools. And using an angle grinder was the most efficient because it can sand down faster than anyone could. And for painting the rails, it was very straightforward. We used painter's tape to protect the bricks, and Mr. Welder supplied us with the tape. And we also applied the yellow paint to the stair strips by pouring it on there and then rolling it. And this is because the stair strips were conveniently 4 inches wide with the rollers. And we decided to use disposable rollers because they were cheap and we probably wouldn't use them again. So this was the most important part, safety planning. we required everyone to wear closed-toed shoes because the the power washers could slice through people's feet and toes if they were careless. And we also required anyone who used an angle grinder to wear hearing protection and safety glasses so that metal wouldn't go in their eyes. And we also recommended wearing old clothes for all the work days. And we decided at first to rally 8 volunteers, but after our first work day, we decided on 4 instead. And we also had to plan out food and water. We brought water bottles and coolers. And we also brought a gasoline-powered generator so we could use the angle grinder because the library shut off electricity after hours. And we used cardboard and painter's tape and trash bags to keep paint from getting on the concrete. And most of the materials were sourced by Mr. Welder. He gave us the paint and the bleach for getting rid of the mildew. But I did have to go to Lowe's to get safety gear and paintbrushes. So now for the work days, to paint the rails, we first sanded it down with the angle grinders, and then we primed them. With our paintbrushes, they are very ineffective, so we decided to use rollers instead. And for power washing, we originally used a wand sprayer because our cone sprayer broke, but we upgraded to a cone sprayer on our 5th workday. And for painting the steps with yellow paint, we originally used ordinary rollers, but they were really inefficient. They kept on gumming up. So there happened to be a freelancer power washer who was power washing the library that day, and he made a recommendation to use heavy-duty rollers, which are far more efficient. And painting created big messes on the concrete, which we just removed with graffiti remover and towels and scissors, which sounded strange. That was all we had in the car. And so these are pictures of everyone helping out. There is Hunter. That's the power washing. And that was one of the rails after we primed it. And we also put garbage bags underneath the rails so the primer wouldn't drip on them. And that was me painting the rails. And this is what it looks like after we were done.
No, fantastic.
So I'd like to give a thank you to everyone all the scouts who helped. Xander Salas, who isn't here, he helped for 1 workday. Henry Rushop helped for 2 workdays. Hunter McCulloch, who's with me right now, he helped for 2 workdays. And Arturo Sanchez worked for all 4 workdays. And special thanks, Mr. Rushop and Mr. Salas for helping with the workdays, Mr. Welder for helping to coordinate the project, and for for supplying us with the paint and tape. Arturo Sanchez for showing up to every single official workday, and my dad for pushing me to complete the project. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
It's a great job, Benjamin, and congratulations on completing that Eagle Scout service project. I know it's a big deal, and being an Eagle Scout is a great honor as well, too. So thank you for choosing the library and making it look better for all of us. All right. Anything else, Mr. Garza?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll get into items from council. Anybody up here have anything? Nope. It's good to see everybody. Citizens communication. All right, we got a stack of them tonight. We got Miss Cindy Herndon first. And as always, please limit comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I just wanted to explain to you, my worldview is a biblical worldview because I believe that helps humanity. For those of you who disagree with me, I have no issue with that because you're adults. My issue is that life-altering decisions are being made by adults for children who may change their views when they do become adults. There is a depopulation agenda, and these children may never be able to bear their own children when they become adults. God loves us, and Satan hates us and wants to reclaim this earth for his purposes. I believe we're getting very close to the end of times as prophesied in the Bible. We are at a convergence of multiple signs of Jesus' return. The following are a few of them. Daniel was told at the end of time that many would rush here and there, and knowledge would be increased. It was not that long ago that it took months to travel from one continent to the other, and the Apostle John saw in the book of Revelation a return to Babylon. This is relevant because the languages were confused to Babel to restrain mankind from creating anything that could be imagined. In a few years, it appears that artificial intelligence will replace humans in the workforce. It's mind-boggling what the app ChatGPT can do. If you're interested, Jordan Peterson did an interesting podcast on this subject. Pippa Malmgren at the World Government Summit 2022 said the traditional method of accounting and money is about to be abandoned. She said that the superpower governments are on the brink of introducing digital currency. Even our own Federal Reserve did a trial run, and there is an executive order regarding digital currency. We are close to the time frame seen by the Apostle John when he saw people could only buy and sell when they received a mark. The mark will be required by a coming world leader, what the Bible calls the beast. Even for my puppy, it is not recommended for her to be neutered until she's mature enough when her organs are fully developed. Please do not push this depopulation agenda onto our children's developing bodies. To my trans neighbors, this is a fairly new agenda, so I don't know if there's any long-term studies about your bodies, what happens to them many years in the future, but I have listened to different people who have transitioned back to what they were, and it sounds very horrifying. So thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Herndon. Ms. Jill Buchanan.
Good afternoon, City Council members. Gosh, it just seems like that 3 minutes is so fast. My name is Jewel Buchanan. My address is 201 Creek Ridge. I'm an educator, a librarian, as well as a parent, and I use our library. I go in there. I've served on the Library Advisory Board, and I've continued to attend the meetings to see the progress made by this new majority voting block that was created inadvertently or not in the recent appointment cycle. I hope you, all of you, and the Commissioners Court will actually take the time to attend these meetings. I did see Mayor Bachnight at the last one. He made some opening statements. I hope you'll watch this unfold. The nation is watching this unfold. I don't know if you guys all know this, but we were in Time magazine. They interviewed Mayor Bachnight. They interviewed Clint Ives. And it's all about the issue going on in our library. People are watching. This happening all over Texas in Granbury. There's a federal investigation because of this very thing in the school libraries. Sorry, I'm nervous. But I hope you guys will take the time to go and listen to what's going on at these meetings. I know that you have the reports of what's happening, but watching it's really telling. Our advisory board meetings, because I used to be on it, they were held quarterly. They were held in under an hour. We met at noon so people could go to work afterwards. We had time for reports from all the departments. We discussed usage by various demographics and age groups. We made goals. We heard about new activities that we could have. The meetings were great and productive. The new meetings are all taken up with what sounds like cleaning up of a den of iniquity in Sodom and Gomorrah, instead of celebrating and growing our community's most valuable resource for information, education, and entertainment. Our library is truly a jewel. A lot of these new board members speak at these meetings as if the professionally educated and trained library science professionals know nothing about the field in which they specialize. A lot of these new appointees, such as Dale Zuck, he stated at this last meeting, he felt that they should be in charge of what is read and viewed by children and adolescents, not the parents or guardians of these children. He also wanted to amend the bylaws to say that they, the Library Advisory Board, should be the final word on all library matters, not the educated, trained library staff. I really feel like, respectfully, that the meaning of advisory is being misunderstood by several of these people. I have a copy of all the proposed changes to the collection policy, and I hope that you will request them as well. They're very telling. However, attending the meetings is a must because you have appointed these people and they represent you. You may think that it makes sense to follow Ms. Zeller's amendment to move all books with depictions of nude body parts to the adult section. On the surface, it sounds like a great idea, but moving the preteen books on puberty to the adult section, I don't see how that is protecting a child when she can no longer go to the preteen nonfiction department. She has to go all the way over, or he, to the adult nonfiction, where all the other adult nonfiction books about sexuality and humanity are. I just don't see how moving them to the adult section protects our children. Those 10 and 11-year-old children
Yeah.
need to be in their area.
Ms. Buchanan, can you
I
wrap
know,
it
I
up?
saw the red dot. I was going as fast as I could. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and congratulations to your sister.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Harley Fisk.
Good evening, Mayor Balknight, City Council members, and interested citizens. I attended the last Library Advisory Board meeting. I noticed that some of the board members seem to have difficulty with the concept that what they say may not mean all that they think it does, right? Members of the board say they want to restrict where books are placed in order to protect our children and grandchildren. They don't seem to realize that what they are saying is that they have failed to provide these children with the tools that children need to flourish in today's society. They have failed to provide the love, the respect, and the trust that are so important. The kids should be able to have open and honest discussions with their parents on all aspects of their lives. We need to make certain that our children learn about the world around them. They are around other people much of the time, and if we have not taught them to trust us, they will look elsewhere to satisfy their curiosity. This could lead them, into places much darker than the library. One of the books that some members of the advisory board objected to was the subject of how young bodies change as they reach puberty. It was implied that this subject is something that should be taught by parents or churches. All right? It's a nice thought, but there are young girls being raised by single dads. There are young boys being raised by single mothers. There are children being raised in households where the parents must work multiple jobs just to survive. There are children who are too embarrassed to ask their parents for guidance and advice because the trust is not there. Why should we want to make it more difficult for any child to get this information from a reliable source? Some children will find that they are different. They may be a different color. They may have a different accent. They may be larger or smaller than others. Some will sing and dance, others will not. Some will do well in school, others will struggle. Some mature early, others later. We as a community must find ways to support each of these. There is no one-size-fits-all option. We must love, respect, and trust all children. The library has trained professional staff to provide guidance to all who enter. We should let them do the job they were educated to do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fisk. Ms. Kelly Pierce.
Hello, I'm Kelly Pierce. I have a much less easier topic. I'm here to introduce myself. I'm running for the Tourism Advisory Board. I have been in business downtown since 2010. I had a rental space on Santa Rosa, just one little block over, for 10 years. And in 2020, I purchased an historic building to expand my business, which has been a success in the face of pandemic. I love this town, and I love downtown, and I want to see it grow and flourish. And I think that I am a viable candidate, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Ms. Hybel. I'm sorry, Ms. Pierce. The next one up is Ms. Hybel.
So hello, everyone, again. My name is Jennifer Hybel. First, I want to thank you for considering me for the open seat on the Tourism Board. I'm a wife, a mom to 3 fantastic kids, and a grandmother to 4 beautiful children. I'm a local small business owner right here in downtown Victoria. My husband and I opened South Texas Performance on Southwest Moody 12 years ago, and my partner Jackie Winstead and myself opened Mother Cluckers downtown in early November. I have been hosting outdoor events and fundraisers in our community for 12 years with the goal of highlighting small business in our community. Since opening Mother Cluckers downtown, we have had shoppers visit and most importantly buy from other cities such as Portland, Lake Jackson, and New Braunfels, just to name a few. It is very humbling to see visitors travel hours to shop our amazing downtown, small businesses. And we will continue this trend with a full schedule of outdoor events in 2023. I'm a firm believer that if you host a well-organized event, the community will show up and they will support you. Hosting successful events promotes tourism and brings revenue to our city and fills our hotels. I feel very strongly that small business is the heart of any community, and just as an example, when our family travels, the first places we go are to the local downtowns. Why, you ask? Simply because we know that is where the unique small businesses are located and the best customer service is found. Growing small business grows our community, which then grows our tourism. I'm very passionate about growing small business. I do not believe anyone is competition. There is room in this world for all of us to grow. The 5 vital components to tourism are attraction, accessibility, accommodation, amenities, and activities. With a good team, we can grow, we can prosper, we can all build each other up, and I am ready to take this task head on. Once again, thank you for your consideration and have a great evening.
Thank you, Ms. Hybel. Mr. Wagner.
Good evening. As you consider the recommendations of the Library Advisory Board Committee a little bit later, please make decisions that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion for all citizens of our community. Please reject any discrimination against our LGBTQ citizens guised as protecting children or objecting to indecency. Our public library is not a babysitting service. If parents want to restrict their child's access to certain materials, why don't they do it themselves? Also, when will this board attend to other important business on their agenda, which is now backlogged for over a year? Please listen to our city attorney who told the board a few weeks ago that, quote, children in this community have the same rights as adults when it comes to accessing materials in our public library. As Ms. Lacey warned, quote, be aware that putting this kind of broad restriction on things and automatically moving things that are appropriate for children based on one standard could potentially open up doors to risk. Please consider that elements of the proposed collection policy could indeed put the city of Victoria at risk and may trigger legal action against the city and various class action lawsuits. Please investigate how much taxpayer-subsidized time, effort, and money was expended by city offices in Granbury, Texas, or Keller, Texas, or Llano, Texas, to defend against federal investigation and lawsuits. Is this really the best use of taxpayer dollars in this city? Do we truly want Victoria to come up with these cities in the Google search of shame? How does this help our city's reputation and make us stronger? Please remember that our public library receives federal funding and is subject to the guidelines of the Title IX of the 1972 Civil Rights Act and its pending amendments, which would broaden the scope of discrimination to include sexual orientation and gender identity and would extend exclusionary provisions beyond educational programs. Persons that are gay or trans, regardless of their age, are citizens of this country. They are entitled to the privileges and immunities, due process of law, and equal protection of the laws codified by the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Honorable council members, I know each of you want to do what's best for this community. I implore you to consider the needs of all of our citizens. Please be vigilant in standing up against bigotry and discrimination masquerading as virtue and morality. This isn't grooming or indoctrination. This is inclusion and empathy. Please be guardians of wisdom and knowledge instead of lovers of spectacle. So say we all.
Thank you. Mr. Von der Rohe.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Just wanted to congratulate
Julie Balknight, I don't know if you know her. She got a promotion to district judge, and
A couple of years I've known her.
we got plenty of felons, in Victoria, so she will be very busy, And also Family Dollar, 609 North Bend Jordan, they're still dumping stuff. They just dumped on the weekend a big lazy boy. Now they got a box spring, a big couch, and a lazy boy. And then 3 police cars came because they have dumpster divers that's come in looking for trash or whatever. I mean, to us it's trash, but to them it might be gold whenever they find. But they were wondering, can't they dig through the dumpster, after they close? Why does it always have to be, in business hours? And also on last Tuesday, not this Tuesday, they had some brisket stew at Christ Kitchen. I'd have paid $20 for it. It was pretty good, And also they're giving free food at 2802 Lone Tree Road. You can get it on the 17th between 1 and 3, and you got to have an ID. And the phone number is 361-433-3538. And wanted to thank the police department for chasing the sex offender in the trailer park. He needs to update his mailing address and his physical address. I appreciate the work everyone's done. Thanks. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Hester.
Hello, I'm Jim Hester. I've been in Victoria for, 46 years now? Something like that. Anyway, wanted to talk about how kids can be influenced by certain things, by my personal experience. My parents were divorced and we moved to Beaumont, Texas when I was 10, but prior to that, I lived in Alhambra, then ultimately I lived in Altadena, California. And in Alhambra, I ran across some kids with a flexi. You know what a flexi is? It's basically something that you ride down on snow with, and people would put their wheels on it so they could go down the hills, basically in parking garages and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm walking by, and they included me in a particular role of making sure that if a car is coming by, it was my responsibility to make sure that they didn't ride down there. Now, I was only at best 5 years old at that point, so I guess I was a little bit gullible to do that. And so a car came up down the road, stopped, somebody got out, and the car just sat there. And the car's not, there's a car there. Just, you told me not to let you guys go. There's a car there. And so we got into this debate with me out there by the sidewalk and them up on their hill, if you would. And after a while, they kept arguing with me. They said, you keep saying there's a car there. There's not a car there. And so I gave in to them, said, okay. And I don't know what hand motions I made or anything like that that would cause the kids to decide to come down or tell the person in the car that it was okay to come. I don't know why he was stopped, okay? And yet, he came down, the car came forward, okay? And basically, what I saw was it went underneath the car, the flexi did, and they were dragging along a long distance, sparks flying, not exactly a pretty picture. And so I don't know what happened to the kid. All I know is that after a while, a whole bunch of parents were there, and I figured it'd be a good time to leave. And so that was traumatic, very much so, to the kid and for me. And so that you have to watch out how kids are influenced. Now, I will tell you that after that, I did, in a couple of different instances, tell someone stop when they're backing up so they wouldn't run over a kid and stuff like that. I would encourage you, and since they're talking about stuff going on with things, there was something that our Ken Paxton said, and he talked about summarizing some stuff. Each of the sex change procedures and treatments enumerated above in a statement, he said, when performed on children, can legally constitute child abuse under several provisions of Chapter 261 of the Texas Family Code. So you have basically people saying, don't worry about it, and other people saying, what's the law said? Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll close citizens' communication. We don't have any items with the public hearing. And while we're going through the consent agenda, if I could ask Mr. Foote to come up, I somehow got out of my correct screen, and so I can't sign back in. So We're going to consent agenda.
There's one item on the consent agenda. Item D1 is the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting on December 20th, 2022.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E1.
Item E1 is my apologies. It's a resolution approving members of the Tourism Advisory Boards. Be taking just a moment to transition.
James needs a lot of time anyway.
One of the top. Back and then just run away. Sorry.
No, it's got an issue on it.
Mayor, is it okay if April proceeds since
Oh, yeah, yes,
since
sir.
this voting is manual?
Yes. I'm good.
I'll share with you. Okay. James is going to get the presentation set up, but I'll begin by telling you that the resolution before you tonight appoints members to the Tourism Advisory Board. Of course, the board does advise on the Convention and Visitors Bureau on such matters as referred to it, including administration of grant programs, advertising, and other activities. And they operate under the laws that the council approved. And the composition, there's 18 members, 13 voting members, 5 ex officio, and they serve 2-year terms. And they cannot serve more than 3 consecutive terms, starting on January 1st and ending on December 31st. So it is a large board, so you have 3 voting members from the lodging accommodations, 2 from arts, 1 from the historic preservation, 1 from UHV, 1 from VC, 1 from the downtown business district, 1 from food and beverage industry, 1 from retail shopping, 1 from attractions, and 1 from sports and outdoor tourism. The ex officio or non-voting members are all city staff, so the CBB director, the city manager, his designee, the Main Street executive director, the public library director, and the Parks and Recreation director. So we have several appointments to do tonight. So there are 8 members that we need to appoint. So the it's for UHV, VC, sports and outdoor tourism, and retail. Those 4 we only have 1 applicant for, and it's the applicant that currently serves. So those 4 we would be asking if you're willing to reappoint. And then the attractions, food and beverage, downtown, and arts would all be multiple people that have asked to be considered for those positions. So as I just mentioned, the reappointments are for UHV, Victoria College Sports and Outdoor Tourism, and retail shopping for UHV, it's Jay Lambert, Sue Prudhomme for Victoria College, Ashley McGee for Sports and Outdoor Tourism, and Rosanna Fish for retail shopping. So the first question I have for you is to ask if you would consider reappointing those 4 people. That one's not an actual paper vote, but if you would just indicate that y'all are interested in doing that.
I would recommend that.
Seconded.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to reappoint those members. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, so the next 4 categories all have multiple applicants. So I'm going to stop on this next page so that you can see the applicants there. There's ballots on your desk. They all have your names on them because we can't vote by secret ballot. The ballots are available in my office. The first one that we're going to go to is attraction. So we have Kelsey Wilson and John Ann Welch. If you'll please.
Abstaining is not an option.
Yeah. And I'll come around and grab the
Present.
Shouldn't have to go through that.
Okay, so with a 4-3 vote, John Ann Welch's name will be entered on the resolution.
Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. You got further than I did.
We missed you, in other words.
Yeah.
So the next industry that we need to vote on is going to be the food and beverage industry, where we have Jennifer Williams and Brian Keith to consider.
While she's counting these, I would just want to comment that looking at these, it's so hard to pick one. I'm just thrilled with everybody that's applied, and so if we didn't for some reason pick you, please apply again.
Yes, ma'am, quite a few great applicants. So with a 5-2 vote, Brian Keith's name will be entered in that one. So the next industry is the Downtown Business District, which we heard from both applicants. And all applicants were invited to speak tonight if they so chose, but many of them couldn't make it. Okay, also with the 5-2 vote, the name of Jennifer Heibel will be entered in the resolution for that particular category. And the last category has 4 individuals: Michael Tier, Buck Moore, Michelle Hall, and Mark Hinojosa. So if you'll please circle the one that you would like to vote for, and we'll see if we can get this one done in one vote too. Take more than one vote here. So we have 2 for Michael Tier, 2 for Michelle Hall, and 2 for Mark Hinojosa. So out of those 3, and then Buck Moore did receive 1 vote. So if you'll take the 3 that had 2, which is Michael Tier, Michelle Hall, and Mark Hinojosa, and just use those 3. Okay, so we have a 3 and 2 and 2. So the one with 3 is Michelle Hall. So her name will go into that resolution. So we just need a motion to complete the process.
I make a motion that we accept, it was Joanne Welsh, Brian Keith, Jennifer Heibel, and Michelle Hall to the Tourism Board.
I second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. And yes, Ms. Scott was correct. Thank you all for applying for the positions. Please put your name in the hat again. Everybody is very, very qualified candidates, and appreciate you taking the time to volunteer. All right, E2.
E3.
No, E2.
No, the vote.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Item E2 is a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Madden Media Preprint LLC for our tourism branding study in the amount of $57,500.
Thank you for your time this evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Joel Novsad. I'm the Director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and have a exciting proposal for you all here this evening for our tourism branding study. It has been a project that we have talked about before in the budget process, and something that we're very much looking forward to. So I have a brief presentation just introducing the kind of nuts and bolts of the process, and then I will then introduce Daryl Whitworth from Madden Media to provide a presentation on their services. So what are we looking for when we say a tourism branding study? A comprehensive look of what makes us unique and how we should be marketing ourselves and what that looks like to bring in people from out of the community. That includes research, strategy, development, and then finally activation and evaluation. But what does that comprise of when you're talking about a tourism branding study? Well, a brand action plan addressing both the branding and marketing components, including things like our main logo, alternate logos, our URL, which is currently explorevictoriatexas.com. If we could change our brand name, you could see that changing. A brand statement, different cities have different taglines. Right now, Victoria, we don't really have one right now. What is something that makes us unique? Austin live music capital of the world, that sort of thing. What are those kind of brand statements that are saying about your community? A suggested capital of Texas designation. Believe it or not, we don't have one of those. You have cities that are the Gator capital of Texas and things like that. We actually, those are approved by the state legislature, and we don't have one. There's a lot of things about Victoria that make us unique, and I think through a branding study, we can find something that aligns to give us a little publicity out there and get one of those fun designations through the state. And as well as a minimum of a couple of hashtags that we can use in all of our social media. If you go to Explore Victoria, Texas, our Facebook page, we've been doing very successful there on our social media. What kind of hashtags can we use that coincide with a possible new brand? A branding guidelines and style guide, so that means color palettes, fonts, different things that you use to structure your logo, your website. All of that affects how you look and how you promote yourself. Key messages for individual audiences, such as leisure, sports, and meeting audiences. Design concepts. How does this new branding affect what a possible print ad, web ad, billboard signage would look like? And then an accountability plan which measures the success of that project. So why do we need this? What's our current brand? Well, that's it right there. That's our Explore Victoria, Texas logo, our main logo in our current brand name. But the little bit of fact about it is that they were never strategically developed. And it affects everything, what our website looks like, our printed materials, our advertisements. These were just kind of developed throughout the years, different freelancers working with different input from different departments. And we never had hired a true professional marketing agency that had experience in working with other destinations to design what our look and feel is when we're marketing ourselves as a community. So much has changed in Victoria in the last 10 years. New businesses, events, activities. You see all the wonderful applicants we're seeing for our Tourism Advisory Board. There's a lot of energy and excitement, and we feel like it's a great time to address that excitement in the new businesses and events and how we market ourselves. And with our upcoming bicentennial, it's a great time to reassess and refresh our brand as we promote ourselves to a greater extent to the state and the country. So how do we find Madden Media? I can say it's a thorough process. Didn't just pick them out of a hat. We worked with our City of Victoria purchasing department for a competitive bidding process. We did have that RFP out for about a month, and we did receive a total of 5 bids. 5 city staff members comprised the committee that scored the bids, including myself, Elizabeth Tice, our new assistant director, Nancy Britton, our destination marketing manager, Ashley Strevel, our director of communications, and Danielle Williams, our director of economic development. Madden Media presented the best value and consequently was the highest scoring bid in the scoring process. And we're very excited to be working with them. I've known multiple members of their staff, including Mr. Whitworth here for years now in the Texas tourism industry. So now I'll be introducing Mr. Whitworth, presenting on behalf of Madden Media. He's a senior director of destination strategies. He's a 26-year veteran of the tourism industry in Texas, spending over a decade and a half with the Fredericksburg Convention and Visitors Bureau before coming to Madden Media. Daryl currently serves on the Texas Travel Alliance Executive Board of Directors and works with local and state-level destinations to grow their sustainable tourism industries. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Whitworth as a presentation for Madden Media.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager Garza. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. Please understand this is going to be a relatively informal presentation because I want you to know who you are entrusting the future tourism brand of the City of Victoria to. So please feel free to ask me any questions as we go through this. Is there anything that piques your interest, your curiosity? Do not hesitate to stop me and ask questions. So what I'd like to do to begin with is give you a brief introduction of who we'll be working on so you get a little idea about the qualifications that Madden Media brings to you, as well as the team we'll be assigning here, and then the process that we'll be using, the time frame, and of course, as Joel already talked about, the cost, and we'll show you actually somewhat detailed breakdown of that. So let's see. Thank you. So just who we are, Madden Media is the proverbial American small business success story. Jill and Kevin Madden began their tourism business as a guide for Tucson in their garage back 40 years ago. We now have over 150 people based throughout the nation. And that is something we're very proud of because we've been able to bring in a lot of new people with a lot of great experience in both tourism and branding. 20% of our team used to work at destination marketing organizations. DMO is what's a Convention and Visitors Bureau. It's the more commonly used term now when you're describing what we do. One thing that I'm always very proud of when you're speaking about Madden Media or when I get to talk to folks about who we are is that myself, as Joel mentioned, I was with the Fredericksburg Convention and Visitors Bureau for 15 years. I was a client of Madden Media. We have the majority of the 20% that work for us were former clients of ours, which speaks very highly about how we value, how we treat our clients, and the reputation we have in the industry. This is going to sound a little bit bad when I tell you this, but COVID, we're actually one of the businesses that COVID helped because we went away from having the majority of our staff isolated in a single building in Tucson, Arizona, to being able to hire some of the best and brightest staff from throughout the nation. The people who will be assigned to work here will literally go from New York to Texas, several of us, and over to Tucson. So we'll get the best mix that we can for you. And of course, as I mentioned there at the bottom, there's several of us here in Texas. We'll be working directly with Joel and his team going forward. Just to give you a little bit of idea about how we visualize tourism, we believe in representative storytelling. Your brand and your new creative assets will show that everyone can live, work, and explore Victoria through an inclusive storytelling way. Now, when you look at what a DMO does, in all candor, the full and the main obligation and responsibility of your DMO is to inspire people to want to visit your community. Once we've got them convinced to inspired to want to visit Victoria, then they've won half their battle. We also are going to use a lot of destination intelligence. With the amount of people that we have, a full-time destination intelligence team that's able to glean device transition data, back-end data from websites, et cetera, we have a lot of information we can bring for doing the intelligence we need here. Travel makes the world a better place. Tax revenue builds your parks, builds your schools. Paychecks help families. Exposing new people to Victoria will bring these new tax dollars to your community and allow you to grow your community going forward. We also believe in sustainable tourism. I have always told the people who I work with that having been from the CVB, I will never make a decision that will negatively impact your CVB if it was not a decision I'd make for myself. So we always bring ourselves that way. And then responsible marketing. I don't know how many of you have heard of over-tourism, but we're seeing a lot of communities that are now facing over-tourism. While that may not be the case in Victoria, we're always mindful of that because we want to make sure that you have a great place to live, work, and visit. What does Madden Media offer as far as services? We are a full-service destination marketing agency. We do basically everything in the tourism marketing field, from strategy. We buy media. To put the amount of media in perspective that we purchase on an annual basis, we're a Google Premier Partner. Google awards that to only 3% of the top agencies of the nation, meaning that we're in the top 3% of spend with Google when it comes to advertising on media. So that's a pretty significant amount. We do a significant amount of research. We have an entire team devoted strictly to research, researching online trends, device movements, things like that, that we can use to make the best decisions for our partners when we're looking to target the visitors and bring the right visitors at the right time to your destination. We offer full service creative teams. We've got people that can design everything from billboards to videos to nationally award-winning projects. Marketing technology, most of you would consider that to be website. We build custom websites, but we build them with the mindset that the website is the front door to your community and you should have ownership of that front door. So we allow our partners to evolve and develop their own websites after we launch them. And we also offer public relations, meaning we're fully into all components of what Joel and his team might need, even though we're just here for a branding study. We do business across the nation. This is just a small list of all the partners we have. I've got numerous partners here in Texas, and we have them throughout the nation. So we work with a lot of different people. We're always very conscientious of what teams we assign to what cities so that they are not directly competing cities. For example,
Lubbock and Amarillo are fairly close together, clients of ours. We have completely separate teams working on them, so there's no cross-pollination, so to speak, and we're not competing against one another in that respect. As I mentioned, we specialize in tourism. Probably 95% of the businesses that we work with are tourism related. The other 5% are economic development, or somebody who's come to us and said, you've done such a great job with us on tourism, we'd like to work with you. What you see here is a list of national awards that we won for clients in the last couple of years. A couple on the far left-hand side there. Port Aransas, I think many of you are familiar, not being too far from here. We won 2 national awards for them this past year for the marketing that we're doing there. So we're very proud of what we do from a creative basis and an award-winning standpoint. This is some of the people that will be working. The majority of us that will be touching you on a daily basis are down the right hand and the middle bottom. Our CEO is a former West Point graduate. Our Chief Revenue Officer has been in the tourism industry 20 plus years. Katie is based in New York. Renee is in Tucson. I'm just up the road in Fredericksburg. Louis is Tucson. Ryan is up in the Fort Worth area, and Holly is in Tyler. So you've got folks in Texas and other places that'll be able to look at your destination with a fresh set of eyes. The pricing that we put forth is $7,500 for an immersion trip. We're not going to be so bold as to tell you that we can understand Victoria without spending time here and not spending time putting boots on the ground here. We're going to have our team come down. We'll coordinate with Joel and his team as to when works best, have them come into market. We're going to have an onboarding research. We'll do a significant amount of research on the back end, but we're also going to need the time to talk to those of you who are here, the stakeholders, the people that are on the advisory board. We're also going to talk to visitors who have come to Victoria, find out why they've come. We can even research visitors who haven't come. And then we're going to develop your brand, your product, and all the creative, and then give basically a toolbox to Joel and his team going forward. Our timeline is approximately 7 months. And based on experience with doing branding processes, this is a fairly realistic, not an overly optimistic, but also not a dragging your feet type timeline. The biggest thing is once we can get here and get in market, we'll start building off of that because we can start doing all of the research on the back end, whether we're here or not. You have a question, sir? Or sorry. And then this is the timeline that we will use, of course, beginning tonight, assuming this is approved. We will set a call this week, begin working with them on when we can bring our staff down to do that. But on the back end, we'll have our organic specialists working, our digital marketing specialists working, finding all the data we can glean. And then hopefully by 4th of July, 1st of August, we will have you a brand that you are happy with. I will tell you, and this is one thing that Joel and I discussed, if we don't get it right the first time and we bring you something that you are not comfortable with, that you do not feel is representative of your city, we will go back and tweak it. We want to make sure that we come out with something that you are happy with. But also one thing to remember when you're doing branding, and this is 20 plus years of destination branding here, for what we're doing for tourism, we are speaking to people who do not live in Victoria. So while you know Victoria very well, we want to make sure that we are communicating something about Victoria that makes people who live in Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas want to come visit your community. So our approach is going to be very simple. We're going to conduct a significant amount of research. We're going to work on strategizing with Joel and his team and our team on that research. We're going to begin to build the brand. And then once we've got it built, we're going to hand them a toolbox that they can use and give them insights, recommendations, and suggestions as to how they can do that going forward. Just going a little deeper here in some of the processes, we're going to analyze all the data you have. There's a tremendous amount of data that's available to us just from our intelligence that we can glean from the website and other things we can find out about Victoria. Not just what people are searching for lately regarding the library. There's a lot of other stuff we can distill. We can integrate any insights that you already have. There's a lot of information that we have because the amount of business that we do in the tourism industry, we understand what we can find and what we can go get and bring that here. And then we're going to do as much data collection as we can for Victoria to get the right mood and the right feel for your community. We will then assess where we are. Where are you in your tourism life cycle? What new products need to come in? What existing products maybe aren't as popular as they used to be? We're also going to look at different things, seasonality, and what else we can do. We're going to decide where we want to go, and that's where you and the advisory committee that you appointed tonight will help us. Tell us where it is as a tourism destination you and Victoria want to go. Then we're going to develop a plan to help you get there, and then we're going to measure how we're doing along the way. We don't just set it and forget it in these things and put it out there and say, oh, this is pretty and we'll continue to run. We can run brand studies on the back end and assess people and find out through surveys what they think of Victoria. Did they see your ads? Has their perception of your community changed as we've done this project? The best way to describe brand development is a little bit like a distillation process. And while this may not sit so well with some folks, this is a perfect analogy. We're going to take the raw materials, we're going to break it down and mill it, we're kind of distill it, let it ferment a little bit, and then we're going to give it some time to perform and market. And then we will have the right brand that you need for Victoria going forward. And then once we have everything, we will work to activate it. Simply handing the image, logo, tagline, whatever it is, designation we end up with, to Joel is not going to benefit him enough. We're going to utilize our years of expertise, insights, and intelligence to help him make the best decisions going forward so that he can bring even more people to Victoria. So that is what we're going to do in a quick nutshell, condensing it down. Happy to entertain any questions at this time.
I only have one concern, and that is, how does the rebranding or the branding study for Victoria fit in, and is it different than a bicentennial celebration?
So a bicentennial celebration is basically a one-time event. And full disclosure, as Joel mentioned, I'm from Fredericksburg. I just finished serving on the steering committee for the 175th anniversary there. So what was tied in with that was a lot of the marketing during that year that was done by the CVB was actually promoting the historic aspects to the 175th celebration. The brand that we give you should be an overarching feel for the community, and it can be celebrated and should be able to be celebrated through the 200th or through the bicentennial component. So working those kind of things together, I don't mean to sound cavalier by this, but it's fairly simple and something I've got personal experience doing already, so.
Okay, great.
I think it sounds great. I'm way out of my league. I didn't realize until I read this how much I like Explore Victoria, and I didn't know where it came from. So I want to do a shout out to whoever it was that developed that, but I know we need to do more.
Yep, thank you.
It's perfect time as well.
Thank you.
Darrell, I'd just like to add one thing. Add more color to that, please. It looks too blah.
All right, entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval of E2.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E3.
Item E3 is a resolution approving the submission of the application to FEMA's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant Opportunity for the Off-Channel Reservoir Interconnect Project in an estimated total amount of $4,361,410.31, which requires a city match commitment of $1,090,352.58.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. Just really quickly, I don't have a presentation, but I wanted to let you know for my part of it, I'm working on finishing up the submission for the FEMA brick for this project, and this constitutes the commitment to our match should it be awarded. The only other thing I wanted to mention about it is I'm sure you're always interested in the timeline, and of course FEMA is not specific about that, but I would think that it would take between 6 and 8 months to be able to hear anything about whether or not we've been awarded this project. And if you have technical questions, I do have Ken here.
6 to 8 months to hear.
Probably. It has to go through a multi-step process because it's being submitted to FEMA brick through TDIM. So it has to go through their process and then it has to go through FEMA's process.
Does TDM have the ability to weigh in on it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions you might have. Obviously, this is a project that has been talked about for a while.
I do have a couple of questions, I guess. Is this for how many gravel pits or off-channel reservoirs would we be connecting under this one?
Right now, we have a total of 11, and there's 3 of them that the elevations make very difficult. They're a lot lower than the other ones. We would propose at least getting the three largest ones connected, and then there's two other ones that if we can get it in the money, I'd get all of them connected. Basically, we have off-channel reservoirs 3, 4, and 8. Currently, they're all interconnected. Smaller pipes, but they are connected. The larger ones, which is 5, 6, and 7, aren't connected to the ones that we need. So we do those manually with the pumps. We move the motor, the pump, the piping back and forth to those. What we'd like to do is connect them all so that we don't have to do it manually. It takes 2 to 3 days each time we move from, off-channel reservoir 6 to get it to 7, to get 5 to 6, 6 back to 8. It's just a nightmare. So that's what we're looking at, is to connect it. And one of the interesting things is currently the volume in 3, 4, and 8, which are connected, is about 775 acre feet. Getting 5, 6, and 7 adds another 1,300 acre feet. And that's about 25 solid days during the summer of volume. So it's an important project to get those connected so that we don't have to worry about, does the pump break or is the motor broken? Because we've run into that before.
These would be solid pipe interconnects and not pumps.
Solid pipe or open channel.
Okay.
And right now, Urban has them, we have them with contract and do a minor contract to do some preliminary engineering to firm up the number, look at the estimates, and revise it. The study was done, the OCRs was done back in 2014, so it's an older study. We need to get it more current.
As far as maintenance of the grounds around those OCRs, it's all in the floodplain.
Right.
And it always looks, when I drive by, to be an impediment for floodwaters. Has it always been overgrown like it is now?
It typically has. We do have a mowing contract to mow around the perimeters and to mow where we need to mow. But as far as that growth that's there, that's been there, and it's not really an impediment for floodplain or anything like that. When the river gets up, all the lakes go underwater, which is a good thing. They fill up.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to move to adopt this item.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second to approve item E3. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
That's exciting. Let's all think good
Yes,
things.
be positive thoughts.
I will say that somewhere Mr. Halapaska is smiling down.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking myself. Hopefully he'll give us some help. Item E4.
Item E4 is a resolution considering the adoption of library collection development policies.
All right, before we start discussions and/or presentations on this, can we recess into an executive session just to consult with our attorney? And then we do plan on coming back out and discussing this item. So, 6:08.
Okay, the council will recess an executive session on the 3rd day of January 2023 at 6:08 p.m. And the executive session is in accordance with the Texas Government Code 551.071.
And everybody can keep their seats here. We're gonna go out this time as opposed to how we normally do it. All right, it's 6:48 PM. Thank y'all for y'all's patience. We will gavel back into session. And we already read item E4. So we'll accept any motions, seconds, so we can get it on the floor to discuss.
For the sake of discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve this item.
I'll second.
Thank you. So discussion, I think it'd be best if we just go through the policy before us. It's, we're gonna look at what's titled right now, Juvenile and Young Adult Collection Development Policy. It's 5 pages. And this is what was amended at the last Library Advisory Board. And does anybody want to start, or you want me to start? Okay.
But you are illustrious leader to start.
All right, thank you. The first thing, and I think we've discussed this before, adding young adult back into this, we decided that we would follow National Institutes of Health guidelines for young adults as being 18 to 25. I would like to see this policy have that stricken from it. And, you know, this, just my opinion, and we don't have to nod or agree on anything right now. But there's gonna be amendments that I see to this, and that would be one that I would probably end up proposing.
Meaning you would just say juvenile collection policy?
Yes. Yeah.
Separating them out?
Yeah, and I'd put that young adult back into the adult policy that we will consider at the next meeting or the one after that. And I'm all right with the age being 17 and below, so 18 into 25 would be the young adult and not be covered by this policy. There's a change in the purpose of the policy that was made at the Library Advisory Board. And again, you know, these are things that I'm looking at as a future amendment or cleanup to. And cultural norms is a very tough one to kind of quantify and put what that is. And I might consider striking that out. The other one that I really want to jump to. Okay, let's stop there and.
Yeah, just, I don't disagree with you on cutting out cultural norms, but I just want to make sure that you're wanting to remove the other statements that are crossed out and just go with the insertion minus the cultural norms, like guiding principles of intellectual freedom, if you want that.
Well,
oh, I'm sorry, it's a repeat.
Yeah, it's in there 3 times.
Never mind, please go on.
I just have to add "and" in there.
Yeah.
So you're, just to be clear, what you're suggesting is leaving guiding principle, intellectual freedom,
comma, and
accepted community standards, but striking the cultural. Okay.
That would be my suggestion.
That's your
amendment.
suggestion, okay.
And I don't have a formal amendment as of yet.
I understand.
Mission statement I'm fine with. Anybody have any issues on mission statement?
No.
No? All right, philosophy, the collection development philosophy.
I have a problem with it.
Okay.
It says it is responsibility, the library is responsible for locating resources cognizant of age and content, et cetera, et cetera. I think it should read, the library is responsible according to the juvenile policy for placement of material. Responsibility for the reading or viewing of material for children and adolescents rests with the parent or guardian. And the reason I would like that in there is a child can go to the adult section, pull out a book, and it's not we're not babysitters at the library. It's the responsibility of the parents to see what their children are reading. So I would like that added. I think it's important.
I think that we need to have something in here that is going to say that there is some responsibility on the parent or guardian, and not put it all on the library to make those choices for the parent or guardian. Right.
Agree with that.
Agree, yeah.
And one thing on that too, if, assuming that that does come back in, it says responsible for reading or viewing. I don't know if selection or viewing might be a better phraseology there.
Where's that?
Than reading in that same sentence.
Oh, reading.
You know, I know that we have a change in some policies about parents having to approve checking out the books and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's just maybe some wordsmithing, but.
I think the word selection is a bit of a problem because that's what we're talking about, the librarian selecting the books. I don't disagree with your concept, but I think that word is not the right one.
Okay, I hear what you're saying there. Okay.
That's a good point.
Okay.
Even if it goes with the selection and viewing of material rests with the parents?
Well,
That's the
it's
line.
Maybe it's choice of or viewing of materials.
What she's saying is this policy deals with the selection of books for this section, and don't want to confuse it with
Okay.
the
Selection
adult,
by the
the
customer.
parents or guardians
Okay.
being in charge of selecting books for the library.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna leave it for the reading and viewing then? Of materials for children and adolescents rest with the parents?
Yes.
Okay. I understand.
All right. I got that.
On that same section, there's also a sentence that's crossed out further up.
Yep, the sentence that's crossed out is to satisfy the curiosity of a community of children and adolescents, and I'm okay with that being crossed out because children's curiosity opens up Pandora's box for me, and
I think you kind of get that in education, entertainment, enrichment, and enlightenment. I
Yeah.
think that's redundant.
All right, is there any other comments on that collection development philosophy? All right, responsibility for selection. There were no proposed changes to that. Material selection, no proposed changes to that. And then we get to select.
Mayor, can I back up on
Sure.
one thing? At that sentence that we talked about at the bottom of collection and development philosophy about placement, I'm thinking about placement within this policy. Does it make more sense, placement of books in libraries, does it make more sense for that to be not in the development philosophy section, but maybe moved over to responsibility for selection or material selection? It just seems to be an odd place to put.
There's a section called section placement, I think.
Yeah,
Page 3.
and maybe it makes more sense to have it there than it does in the development philosophy. Just
Yeah. Okay.
from a subject matter standpoint of the paragraph, anyway.
To section placement.
Thank you for backing up there.
Not a problem. All right. And then we were into, on page 2, selection criteria. There was a number of bullet points that were added. We'll hit the ones on page 2 first. Does anyone have any changes, proposed changes that they would like to see, like to discuss on any of those 2 that are there?
Well, I guess it's significant to say that the ones on this page, I'm okay with putting them in, since this is something that the, not that we proposed, but that the Library Advisory Board put in. So I think it's important to say that I'm okay with this page. I've got some problems on the next page.
Okay,
I've got a question.
yes.
Well, if this is in juvenile, that's different than young adult. If there's a book that alludes to rape, doesn't go into any graphic details of it, how does that fit in there? Would, I mean, because it's sexual contact. Does it need to go into, I mean, I don't know. It's something that could happen. It does happen to
Minors.
individuals and minors. It, you know, it doesn't need to go into explicit,
Well, I think it's gonna be up to the library staff to make sure it's not explicit, right? And-
not glorifying it or anything like that. you know,
Right.
From
I mean,
there,
if it-
sexualizing it.
Right, but
I just wanted to make sure that
I
that
think
we
that's
use
where
some
we
common
have to
sense and.
use their
this.
professional judgment in making sure it's not a sexual description of
Sure,
the, you know, incident.
sure.
And that it, you know, it can
Because
still
there's
be a
gonna be some
topic that's
topics that are
discussed and
difficult,
how
but,
to deal with it and, yeah.
okay, okay.
All right, we on to page 3?
Page 3.
We've got 4 bullet points here. And looking at them, I'll give you my opinion. The second 2 that read, content that introduces or promotes gender dysphoria or may cause a child younger than 18 years of age to question if they have gender dysphoria, or content that encourages a child younger than 18 years of age to consider elective procedures for gender transitioning, including reassignment surgeries, removal of otherwise healthy body parts, or administration of puberty-blocking drugs, or,
Supraphysiologic.
thank you, physiologic doses of testosterone or estrogen. I want to somehow, I mean, I'm all right with keeping those in there. I don't know if there's a better way to write it, but I think while they can be important topics to minors, I think it needs to be discussed in an appropriate arena and not so much in this section of the library where it's widely available to a minor. If that makes sense, that it can be a topic and it can be in the library, just not in this section, because I think that neuropsychology and brain development, these are topics that would confuse and otherwise muddy someone's brain that does not have the capability to make rational decisions or go through such complex topics by themselves. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not.
I have trouble with these. I don't think they should be included in there. And I do believe that the part at the bottom where it talks about the penal code, I think if they would just quote the penal code in the policy, that it pretty much would cover everything they have listed here, but in such a way that I don't think, now, maybe it wouldn't cover the last 2 points that you're talking about. It might not. But the rest of the stuff would seem to me, then have a legal foundation. The way some of this is written, it's very subjective and the law is well-written and has not been challenged. I think those last 2 things are discriminatory and could be viewed that way. I know we have the balance between what's legally right, the balance between people's concerns, and the balance of a library that has general knowledge on things. But I don't think those should be included in this. That's my personal opinion. The last 2 statements should not be in there.
So do we need to maybe do some more work on those 2 in relation to the penal code and AG opinions that are out there?
Yes. And I think the other part could be restated looking at the penal code in such a way that it doesn't need to list every single item on here, because the penal code is broad enough to cover those items in language that's appropriate for a policy.
I've got a couple questions related to that.
Just real quick, Councilmember Lockburn, I want to just clarify what you mean by that when you say others. So are you meaning that the items on page 2, that you have an issue with the items on page 2 as well?
I do.
Okay. And when you make the comment that you would want to see language that takes into account the language in the penal code, you're referring that would replace all of what's in blue as new?
I think it should be looked at because I think it could replace all of that.
The
And
last
It's
two
written in
bullets.
such a way.
No, I think Mark means all of the,
All of them.
all of
of
the new
them.
additions. That's what I'm
Except for-
trying to clarify.
Except for the last two things, which are not included in the FEMA code, but I don't think they should be included in here.
I mean, Councilman Lofgren.
Mark,
Well, if they're not included in the penal code, why can't we include them here?
because I don't think they're appropriate. And that's my opinion, and I know you disagree with me because we had this discussion already in the other room. But I don't think they should be included in there.
I disagree.
I have a problem with the direction that these go in terms of promoting or encouraging. And I'm taking issue with those words. I haven't yet decided if I'm okay leaving those in or not. But for instance, the third one, I would say content that introduces gender dysphoria, but I think promote goes too far. And the same thing with encourage. I don't think that's the point of a library policy, to decide the intent of the writer. And I think that promote or encourage is sort of the intent of the writer. And not a well-formed thought is that perhaps this, in a permissive means, belongs in the adult policy instead of prohibiting in the juvenile policy. It's just a thought.
So just to clarify, Councilman Scott, what you're suggesting, and I'm just trying to make sure I get all my notes correct, what you were suggesting just there is the idea of, as opposed to restricting the last two bullets in this juvenile policy, taking those and putting them into the young adult policy in a form that says something along, and don't quote me here, something along the lines of content that it shall be, introduces blah, 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 shall be placed in the young adult or adult section?
That would work. I mean, I don't know that I have any support for that, but that's just kind of a thought off the top of my head.
I'm just trying to make sure I keep everybody's ideas clear.
I think the point that Jeff made, I think we need some opinions, AG opinions on this particular issue.
Yeah, and I'm reading one right now on my phone, and there's an organization out there, and I don't know anything about it, but it's cited in this AG opinion. It's the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine. And what they have found is that childhood onset gender dysphoria has been shown to have a high rate of natural resolution, with 61 to 98% of children re-identifying with their biological sex during puberty. So that would leave me, overwhelming majority resolve themselves, so why even introduce this as a concept, as a solution to gender dysphoria into the juvenile section? I'm not saying don't have books in the library. I mean, that's like my compromise, not my personal wish, but that book certainly, under the First Amendment, should be in the library, just not in the juvenile collection.
My comment on these, just as a whole, would be, I have some concerns about the phrasing of some of these, and this goes a little bit to what Councilwoman Scott pointed out in terms of they require some kind of subjective analysis or opinion as to the intent, the reason behind the material, that sort of thing, versus what I understood the law to be in some of these is an appealing to a purity and interest and things of that nature. So I think when we start getting into, there's things here about designed to promote, or whether or not something promotes a certain act or whatever, I think you get into some real subjective opinions, and maybe to address this content, that's required, but I think we need to be careful there, because we will be relying heavily upon staff to say, okay, does this or does this not? And if we don't draft this carefully, I think it puts them in a very unfair position. I think we need to be very cognizant of that we can't just leave this as subjective to somebody decides, okay, this is what we want or don't want as a member of the library staff. I mean, I think we owe it to them to come up with something a little clearer than that.
Well, I mean, except for it's probably easy to pick out a book that is designed to promote, like, let's talk about it, and the depictions in that book, and, it's not in the juvenile section because the librarians have realized that it doesn't need to be in the juvenile section. But if we are allowing them already to make that decision based on designing or promoting something, let's just put it in the policy that that's what we expect.
I hear what you're saying. I would suggest that we follow language either from the statute or from opinions that have applied these types of statutes in terms of how this is actually applied in the court system, and how it would be looked at from a legal standpoint, versus just kind of coming up with our own kind of phraseology, if you will. And I think that's something Ms. Lacy can help us out with, and maybe looking at whether or not these actually are tracking the precedents that we need to be mindful of here.
Are you on just the bottom two or all those in that section?
I think the bottom two definitely fall within that. There's another one there that, let's see, I guess it's the third bullet point, and the final phraseology there is designed to promote prurient interest. I think probably designed to promote
Appeals.
requires us to figure out what the intent of the author was. Look at this third bullet.
Yeah, I think you quoted appeals early.
Where generally, I think it's
Okay,
looked
designed
at
to
as
promote.
appeals to a prurient interest
Yeah, that
versus
first-
designed to promote.
First
Well,
bullet
I
point.
could be all right with appeals too, as opposed to designed. I mean, I just don't want to strike that whole thing out of there, but.
No, and I'm not suggesting that we strike that out of there. I'm suggesting that we need to look at the language as it currently exists and how subjective is it in making that determination. Something we can talk about, but I think we need to look at that.
And I kind of have that same concern with the second bullet point on page 3 with the words that would entice, induce, or encourage. And
Rather say could?
I think you look at tend to versus would is. Tends to, I believe, is how that's approached.
yeah, that might be better than the would entice. It just doesn't seem.
The ones we've gone through, striking the last two out of the way, as we've had conversation, and I think that's where we initially started about the hypersexualization of some of these books and stuff of this nature. I feel very comfortable with those. The last two, I have some grave concerns. It's like this line has moved and it's getting to a point where I'm not feeling very comfortable with those last two bullet points. I'm not saying I necessarily agree, but I look and it's, while it may not be my cup of tea, it's certainly, I understand that that's a segment of our population as well, and I'm trying to be very cognizant and careful of that. The last one, I even look at that and go, encourages a child and talking about consider elective procedures for gender transitioning and all these other things. And that's the role of a physician and the parents and things of this. So I don't know why that's necessarily in a library thing when that's really, because we're talking under 18. So you're going to a doctor, you're going to surgeons. I'm not really comfortable as a city board dictating that.
Are you saying you're all right with the bullet point in there?
No.
Or just the opposite?
The last two I've concerns about, and I'm not comfortable at this point with them in there.
All right. I will ask Ms. Lacy to send the AG opinion, the KP 0401 to everybody, just so that you can see kind of what I'm seeing as we continue to go through this.
But I'll say, the content in there from a juvenile standpoint, It shouldn't be in there probably anyway, based upon the previous bullet points.
Right, it wouldn't even.
Correct.
It wouldn't even be there. Yeah, I'm just sort of brainstorming this, but, might suggest that we take out the third bullet point, as in remove that prohibition from the policy, but leave the fourth one.
Now, which one are you talking about?
There's, on page 3, there's 4 bullet points.
Right.
And she's saying, leave the third, remove the fourth,
Other way around.
or vice versa. I don't.
Yeah, remove the third as it not being prohibited. I think it probably, a book that promotes gender dysphoria or causes a young child to question it, I think that maybe one of these other categories might eliminate it, but if it doesn't, I don't think, I think our library probably has a place for a book that introduces, I'm not sure about the word promote, but then the last bullet point, I'm comfortable with about the content that encourages. So I'm trying to kind of walk the fence between not prohibiting the subject completely, but in the juvenile section, not having material that tends to persuade. Or is,
But I thought you said a while ago that you wanted those last 2 bullet points in the adult, or the young adult, and not in the juvenile.
well, I threw that out there, but I don't know if that was such a good idea, and nobody reacted to it.
As a reminder, we're now looking at defining young adult as 18 to 25. And so at that point, you have to consider,
Well,
Why would you want
the
those
decisions a
of the young
20-year-old, can make on their own.
Right, and I mean, by,
No, you want it in the adult, because it's talking about
But we want it
in the juvenile?
to protect the juveniles, correct?
We're just talking about this,
this
I'm
is
assuming it's
juvenile.
just a juvenile.
Just talking about juveniles, we're not
Yeah.
talking about. So you're okay
Well, if you're
with,
talking about just juvenile, I would have no problem with the last one being in there.
It's that third, or the one before it, the content that introduces or promotes.
Yeah, what happens if Sally plays football? And there's a book on that. I mean, she's acting like a guy. Can somebody then in turn, that's promoting, she's acting as a male, and it's a slippery slope to go, I don't know.
But also, if I had a daughter that's a tomboy, I don't want her to get confused going in and reading about a gender dysphoria and her thinking, oh, well, maybe because I like sports and my personality lends itself easier to talking to guys as opposed to girls. I don't like, some of the bickering with the girl circles. And I have 2 daughters. And, or the other way around. I grew up with 3 sisters, strong mom, strong grandmother. Sometimes I'm better off talking to females, but I don't think need to change genders. But at an age where you don't have the ability to properly think through and rationalize through all those things, I worry about introducing the concept of gender dysphoria at that early age. And just because, a girl can compete against the guys or with the guys, that's great. I don't have a problem with that. My daughter beat everybody in track all the way through junior high, and I said one day, it'll change, but, and I always promoted that, but it wasn't something else that it wasn't, and I don't want to introduce that idea to minors.
I'd like to leave it in.
I'm okay with it being in the library because it is a piece of work that probably should be in the library for 18 plus, but I just don't want it in the juvenile section.
One concept that may or may not help the conversation, but I think it's important to throw out as a reminder, is that also 15 minutes ago or so, there was also a decision made that the responsibility of the viewing and the reading of the books is on the parent. And so that could be another just perspective for you as you consider the specifics of these bullet points, taking that aspect into account and finding that balance.
So those two, we've taken up the most time. Obviously, we need to do some work and massaging on those two bullet items, it would seem to me.
Right.
Yes.
Seems to be the larger sticking point.
Because when you get into things like may cause and things like that, it's just difficult to apply, in my opinion.
So we're more concerned with the verbiage. We're not concerned with the actual content.
That's a good point.
I mean, certainly as to the,
So it's the verbiage that we're concerned
the
with.
fourth one on the page.
Good question,
there,
Ricky.
Yeah.
I'm, content-wise, I'm fine.
Exactly.
The verbiage, you know, I'm not as good as Ms. Scott and Mr. Crocker and Ms. Lacy on the legal way it should be written, but content-wise, I found it wholly appropriate to be in this juvenile policy.
I would certainly like Ms. Lacy to bring something back to us to look at before any kind of final decision on that, for sure.
Right.
All right, we go past those. Goes on that was added, currently owned items which fall into this category will be shelved in the adult section of the library and are still available for checkout by the general public. So that's very important, right?
Right.
Any library patron who becomes aware of materials which fall in this category in a section of the library designated for juveniles, and I would propose striking out young adults in any amendment, may complete a request for evaluation to relocate it in the adult section of the library. If it is an online or digital item, they may request to reclassify the item for inclusion in the adult online collection, and that goes into kind of there's another part that at the end, that goes into request for reevaluations that only consider a request for reevaluation from Victoria County residents. And city residents are Victoria County residents as well, so it's not just anybody outside the city alone. Okay, and then I crossed out, the genealogy collection is focused on local history materials for Victoria County and its contiguous counties. Primary sources or original documents are collected for these areas.
Is that in the adult section, I guess?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, so the board decided that it was more appropriate to have the reference to the genealogy section in the adult policy as opposed to needing them in both policies, so they just took it out of the juvenile one.
Yep. Section placement, they had added the term young adult. And again, in any amendment, I will be striking.
Striking young adult,
Yeah.
just because of the title.
Yeah, because, yeah. Then we go, there's no other changes on page 3, and we go into page 4 for reasons for removal. And they'd struck demands, the needs and demands, and added instead interests of our community, of the library's community of users.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
And then they just added crew manual instead of continuous review, evaluation, and weeding, which is the crew manual. No other changes on 4. A couple of 5 on the bottom. Library Advisory Board shall reevaluate the library director's decision on the item in question utilizing the library's collection development policy instead of saying based solely on the selection criteria as stated in this policy. So it's just kind of updating it to this collection deal. The retention shall be upheld for 3 years. They changed to 1 year. Everybody feels about that? Is 1 year the right term? 2 years, 3 years?
I would recommend more than 1 year, just from a administrative issue for our people at the library, the employees to have to go through. I see that creating kind of some extra work there. 1 year, you're typically gonna have the same board that you had before, reevaluating the same thing. I would think perhaps a 2-year term would be appropriate there, but open to suggestion.
Say anywhere between 18 and 24 months.
I would like to see the change either to 1 year, or I'd agree with 2 years.
Yeah. And that gets us to the end of where we are. So we have some choices.
Wait,
I have a question. Wait,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Wait.
The
It
bullet
says the
point,
Library Advisory Board shall reevaluate the library director's decision, blah, blah, blah. The final authority regarding removal or retention of library material ultimately resides with the Library Advisory Board. The ultimate removal of a book from the library should be at the discretion of the city council on recommendations from the Library Advisory Board. We should
I'm
have
sorry,
the-
Mr. Lofgren,
like
which
that.
bullet are you?
Can you
on
speak
5,
a little more into the mic, Mark?
request for reevaluation,
it's the
on
third
number
bullet
f-
point
on
up
num-
on
On
5.
page 5,
third bullet point.
The third bullet point up.
the very final bullet point
Okay.
is the final
Thank you.
authority regarding removal. I would like the council to have the ultimate say on removal of books, not the advisory board,
I like what you said there, the council with the recommendation.
with the recommendation of the advisory board.
That's like most things that we do,
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
hot funds, et cetera.
So we have some options this evening. We can try and incorporate this all in one big amendment and, make amendments and pass it by section if we wanted to. We can table this until the next meeting. We can agree that maybe we need to appoint a little committee of 3 of us to work on this with Allison, to make sure we take everybody's notes, and I'm fine copying my notes and giving them to Allison that I made tonight, so that we come back at the next meeting with a clean, pretty much, 98% done copy that we can all discuss without having to look at each little change and all that stuff. I mean, the changes will be highlighted and what the policy looks like. So y'all have a preference of how y'all would like to proceed
I'd like to table it, but with the,
with a committee?
with the committee, and table it until we get all that ironed out, probably by the next meeting, maybe?
I'm just wondering if we're that far apart that we need a committee, or,
I think it might help Allison.
okay. All right.
I don't think we're that far off now.
I don't think we're that far off
I don't
either.
think so either.
I think we got 2 bullet points that we need to really work on,
the
and how it
rest is just-
interrelates with Texas Penal Code and the AG opinions. I think that's the biggest thing to work on. Anybody like to serve on this select committee? We won't put it in your bio. Out.
I will. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll do it, but I'll leave it open for you too,
Be
because
gone- I'm gonna
you're
be
on
gone
a
in
different
the-
opinion than me, so,
I'm going to be gone the next 2 weeks.
okay.
So, I mean, if it's after that, I'd be happy to do it
I'm trying to get this back in our hands
by the next meeting.
by the next meeting.
When do we
I won't be
plan
back.
I know where your position is on some of this stuff, and make sure Allison knows your position, because I
She
can't
does.
call you during this committee.
You can call me.
I can't.
No,
You'd be
Yes,
a number
because we
4.
Unless you
Right.
just.
Allison can
How many planning on meeting? That's just my schedule.
There is no set time.
Okay.
So, I mean, if,
Yeah, I'll be fine.
It's after
You wanna do
next
it?
Tuesday, I could do it.
you want to do it? You want me to do it?
Or I'm sure it could be virtual participation as well.
I would think a big part of this work is going to be done via,
Email.
or exchanging emails and looking at
Emails.
drafts I and can't things of that count on nature. where I'm on top of a mountain.
It should be
You like mountains.
clear access,
That's if you can get the satellite overhead.
I thought that's what Starlink's for.
All right, so, yes, no,
Wanna do
Dr.
first?
Young?
I mean, I give you first right of refusal. Okay. Okay,
You good?
I got it.
All right.
I'll be happy to.
Mr. Crocker? Mr. Garza?
Do we need a second on that motion?
Yes, we need a second.
Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Walker.
remember
Okay.
you have a motion on the floor, because you did.
Yeah.
We have a motion to approve and a second to approve. Did I hear? Motion to table?
I'll second that.
We got a second to table it.
And just for clarification, I can generally get the idea that everyone wants to remove the juvenile, excuse me, the young adult, put it back with the adult. I will have a completed policy for y'all at the next meeting that includes both of those. The changes made by the board to the adult policy at the last board meeting were very, very minimal and generally are things that y'all have agreed to, or at least kind of got the impression that everyone's on board with in the juvenile policy. So that will all be in there as a whole for me to present to y'all as well.
Okay.
So at our next meeting, is this still on the table, or do we have a new motion?
Now, it's a motion to table it until the next meeting
Right.
in a second. So
And
it'll
so
be.
Do we
it'll
vote
be
on
the
that one
table.
first?
It'll be up for discussion at the next one with the substituted, I'm guessing substituted collection development policy.
Yes, sir.
And then will we amend it, or that
If
will,
we'll-
that
we'll
will
look at
in
that.
essence amend it?
Yeah, we'll look at the substituted version, and if we want any amendments to it, we can make that at that time on the floor.
Jeff, okay, if I remember correctly, once before, when we tabled the motion, we left the other motion open so that when we came back, we just voted on it, because it's been first and second to accept it, so we could discuss it. But then because I tabled it, that motion stays open, correct, Allison?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And
So-
I mean, are we safer voting this one down?
No, I think you
Just
vote to
tabling.
table if
Just
that's what you
table.
want to do.
Tabled.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is the motion on the floor right now, is
Just leaving it
strictly
So we
just
have
to
to
table
vote
next
on
meeting.
that.
Okay.
On the tabled motion, we have to vote on it.
Okay, everybody good? Thank y'all.
To vote.
Everyone in favor?
I know, I'm just
Okay.
making
Oh,
sure.
okay, yeah.
Making
Okay.
sure. I know it's getting late, but
We vote on the table?
yeah.
Okay.
But thank y'all again for a good, frank discussion. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody's professionalism. All those in favor of tabling this item until the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Great, thank you. With that, we are going to recess for a brief executive session. It is 7:30 PM. We will not be coming back in to discuss anything or make any decisions tonight.
The City Council will recess for executive session on the third day of January 2023 at 7:30 PM with the executive session deliberation as follows. Texas Government Code 551.087, 551.072, and 551.071.